Hi, this is going to be a general update on things happening on my YouTube channel. In case anyone's curious, there really is no schedule for these. I just do them whenever I have some stuff to talk about. So, channel business first. Sorry, my notes are way over here, so if you see me looking there, that's what I'm doing. Current game lineup. Pretty happy with what I'm doing right now. So we have Final Adventure, Pizza Tower, Bonfire Peaks, Dragon Dreams, and Xenogears at the moment. Final Adventure has definitely been exactly what I hoped it would be. It's pretty large. It's a long one. It's going to be going for the foreseeable future, and I'm quite happy about that. That is just a joy to do every time that I record it. Pizza Tower, kind of the same way. It's different, certainly, but it's a lot of fun. I look forward to recording that every day that I get to record it, and it's going to be going on for a while. Bonfire Peaks is winding down. That one has less time left in it compared to the others. If every puzzle remaining in the game were to take me a full video to do, I think there would be 8 left. Something like that. So maximum 8 more videos on that, probably fewer, because I'm assuming I'll get multiple puzzles done in most episodes, but you never know. I am in an end game. So that one's going to be coming to an end at some point sometime soon. And Dragon Dreams, also a whole lot of fun. Been enjoying it quite a lot. It's a fun thing to explore. I'm doing a second run on the first of the 2 games, because I guess it is 2 games at this point. And that, I'm going to guess, is going to take somewhere around maybe a little less time than the first one. So we got one more episode of Christmas Nightmare going up, then probably about 3 of A Taste of Adventure second run. Then we'll be moving on to something else. And then Xenogears in the what used to be the stream slot. It's a little bit different now and might be changing further. Don't know how far I am through that game. It's, you know, my save file has like 46 hours on it at this point or something. But I'm in the part of the game that I've never seen before, so I have no way to measure how close I am to the end. So that one's going to be going for some amount of time yet. Don't know how much. Anyway, so a little bit of behind the scenes about deciding what goes next in my lineup in each slot. It's a complicated process. So for Final Adventure and Pizza Tower, the 2 that are going for some time yet, I have a list of candidate games that might be going there, and I make myself a speculative lineup of like what I would put in the next slot if I were putting something in today, but the end of those is so far out that I'm not ready to commit to anything that's going in them when they end right now. Bonfire Peaks and Dragon Dreams, however, are much closer, so I've chosen the replacement for both of those. This is a little bit complicated in some ways. Since I started my Patreon campaign, I've been trying to give one of my time slots kind of dedicated to patron votes. And that's been the one that had Kingsfield in it, the one that had... Right, so it started with... It was Final Doom. Final Doom changed to Kingsfield. That was the first vote. Then second vote went to Dragon Dreams. And Doom 64, I've been trying to get into that slot for a while. I might occasionally just elect to use my own discretion and put something in there without a vote. So I'm thinking Doom 64 might go in after Dragon Dreams, and then do another vote after that for whatever replaces that. Maybe. It's a little up in the air, but again, if I were choosing a replacement today for that, it would be Doom 64. Anyway. Then, right, Bonfire Peaks. I've already chosen a replacement myself for that, and that's going to be Elephantasy Flipside. So I played Elephantasy like a year or 2 ago. Okay, so if I look at different notes over here, I can get an exact date. In theory. Elephantasy 2021, 2 years ago. Okay, got it. So yeah, a sequel to that game has come out, and I've been wanting to play it. So that's what's going after Bonfire Peaks. Should be cool. Oh no, I've lost my other notes. There they are. And Xenogears, right, that's part of an ongoing project to play all the Final Fantasies. Which you might not know with all the Chrono Triggers and Xenogears that are in there. But yeah, once that finishes, next up on that list is Dirge of Cerberus, it looks like. So getting into some Final Fantasy VII side games. So yeah, whenever that finishes, that's going to be the next one up. So a few weeks ago, or like a month ago or something, I had like a couple of streams kind of in a row that went wrong due to network connectivity issues, and I never honestly really liked streaming very much. So I decided to take the step of changing the Final Fantasy and Friends time slot to a premiere instead of a live stream. Just to try it out. I had never done a premiere on YouTube before. If anybody's not familiar with it, I wasn't. It's a pre-recorded video that goes up at a particular time and has a chat, just like a synchronized way to chat about recorded upload when it first plays. Then you can just play it like a normal video after that. That's my understanding of it, at least. So yeah, kind of like a halfway in between streaming and just uploading a normal thing. I think I want to switch that series to just a normal uploaded thing. This would work better for me in a lot of ways. So I'm already pre-recording it for the premiere thing as it is. So this won't really be a change in process for me in particular. So what would change is the scheduling a little bit. This would then go in the... Okay, so I'm in Eastern Time, New York time. And for me, the Final Fantasy time slot right now is 4 p.m. on Wednesdays, 1 p.m. on Saturdays. Now 4 p.m. is my normal time slot for the afternoon video that's pre-recorded, and this has always kind of gotten in the way of that, and it's been like, I don't know, weirdly close. I push it back or forward to 3 p.m. on Wednesdays, and sometimes I forget and I schedule it for the wrong time, and I don't know, there's kind of a lot to it. Things feel like they would be simpler if I would just use my 7 p.m. time slot that I occasionally put things in. That's probably where this video is on, I'm guessing, what's today? Today's a Saturday? So I'll probably upload this to go up on a Sunday at 7 p.m. my time. Anyway, so yeah, that's kind of the time slot I use when I have extra stuff like this or something else. So Wednesdays and Saturdays, 7 p.m. would just be dedicated to that, and nothing else would move in this. I mean, the Wednesday afternoon video would go to 4 p.m., same as it is on every other day. And things I like about that is that as soon as the video goes up, I know there are some people who like to watch things on 2 times speed or 1.5 times speed or something. I don't know if you can do that on a Premiere. I'm assuming you can't. I haven't explored closely enough, but since the idea is it's a synchronized thing, you just tune in at the time it goes up and would just be synchronized to what everybody else is seeing. I'm assuming you can't speed it up. I can, maybe because I'm the video uploader, or maybe I just can. Anyway, I think it would just be simpler to just make that a normal upload. So anybody who wants to follow it can watch it at their preferred speed at the upload time. I don't get a whole lot out of having a chat section on the video itself. I don't feel like there's not like a lot of activity on it. I know some people like it, but I think the trade-offs are better with just a normal upload. And, you know, it's a pretty long format of video, so I'm assuming a lot of people would like to watch it at higher speed if they normally do that. Anyway, so that's a change that I think I'm making, and that'll probably just be how it is going forward for that time slot. For the small portion of you who actually watch it, I know that gets a lot less attention than the other stuff I do, so that's fine. I put the same amount of effort into it, more or less, and the relative view counts don't really matter to me for that, so I want to take it seriously. Oh, I'm on the wrong notes once again. Anyway, yeah, so those are changes coming for that, probably at the very next one going up this Wednesday, probably. Right. So another, an ongoing series that I had last year and prior to that hasn't seen a new entry in a while is my devlogs. So I was doing them regularly for Foresight Fight back a couple of years ago. Then those kind of morphed into Audio Lab, and then that kind of morphed into Tile Editor. Then I wrote Throw Rock, and that took over the time slot for the duration of time that I wanted to go through that project. And then I haven't done any since then. And I haven't really talked about it much anywhere. So my personal programming projects have not slowed down at all since then. If anything, they've sped up, well, significantly, since I'm not working a day job anymore. So that is kind of what has become my job. I'm working for myself, working on various projects, including Tile Editor, a video game that I'm making with it that I haven't talked about here yet, and just all these little tools that I've made for myself that need maintenance occasionally. And something else that I'm going to be showing in a moment that I haven't talked about here at all. Anyway, so I'm doing lots of work. Programming has been proceeding at full speed, and it is fantastic. As far as videos about it go, I still want to make them, but I haven't figured out how I want to format them going forward because I wasn't entirely happy with the devlogs that I did. I just felt like they were a little too off the cuff, unprepared, and while that's fine for some things, it's not the way that I want to present the new projects that I haven't talked about here yet. So I'm expecting to do something a little more polished and deliberate for those when I get around to figuring out what I'm doing with them. Anyway, probably in this video a little later, I'll give you a preview of another tool I'm working on in case you're curious, but we'll get to that in a moment. So, on that subject, though, I should talk about what happened to Foresight Fight because that was my main game project for like a couple of years. And I was putting a lot of effort into it, talking about it publicly. It was going to be the first big game that I released on my own. Plans change, and that series sort of took a number of turns. I don't really know the best way to talk about what exactly the project status is. It's not canceled, but it's not being actively worked on right now. Basically what happened is I put together the framework for the game, figured out more or less what I wanted my core mechanics to be, got those implemented with a couple of little test levels just to kind of try them out and see that stuff worked. Then I spent some time putting together the idea for the game. So it's a very level editor heavy game. So everything that I do in it is very much very heavily involves thinking about the idea of like reusable mechanics, how things are put together, different scenarios having different stories and encounters and mechanics that go into them. And that meant that at some point I needed to make the decision on what the main scenario would be. Like if somebody just wanted to open up the game and play it without engaging with the level editor, without playing user levels or making their own, I still want that to be a full, complete experience, just like a regular video game without a level editor. You open it up, you play the main campaign, and then either you're done or you check out custom stuff or new stuff that I release that I've made, for example, was the idea. Where that process fell down is that I never seemed to have the inspiration I needed to have in order to make the main scenario for the game. Like, I had a few ideas for it. I kind of knew at a very high level what I wanted to do. But every time I sat down to work in the level editor on that, well, it was a couple of things. For one thing, I would find a whole bunch of like programming tasks I needed to do in the game, changes I wanted to make to support the scenario I wanted to build. Then that would take my focus away from the creative work of actually building the scenario. And when I got my tasks done and came back to it, it would be I would kind of lost my place and have to figure it out again. But another thing is this is a tactical game, sort of some RPG elements in it, and I kind of overestimated my ability to design levels in that space, because I don't have a whole lot of experience in thinking about like an entire RPG campaign with, balancing whatever tactical decisions you accumulate equipment, there are encounters to do. Anyway, yeah, so just putting that entire campaign together was something that Just I wasn't quite up to the task of doing it at the time. I have a lot of stuff I need to learn before I'm able to do that. So then things just kind of languished as I worked on my tile editor, which I wanted to use on it. Then I got some other game ideas and prototyped them, and they were kind of more immediately exciting. So yeah, that's just kind of how that project has petered out at this point. I still think about it a lot. I still fully expect to come back to it someday, but I'm not actively trying to make that happen right now. I'm focusing on other things until the time comes around again that it's the time to work on Foresight Fight. I expect it to happen. I don't know when, and I'm just going to be okay with that project having gotten as far as it is. Like, again, it got as far as it is. It's ready for me to come back to it when I'm ready to do so. Like, nothing has decayed in it. It hasn't gone away. So, I have half a project written. I'll write the other half at some point. That point is not now, but I expect it to happen in the future. Anyway, so going to be focusing on some other things instead, for the moment at least. So you probably saw, if you were following any of those series, whatever, I wrote this audio application, Audio Lab, I called it, for synthesizing audio and putting together musical compositions from scratch, just from mathematics, not using any recorded sampled audio. And I was real happy with how that turned out. Was going to use it for Foresight Fight music and all my other games and stuff. Throw Rocks music was composed with it, and all of its sound effects were made in it. And then I ended up working on an image editor. So the tile editor thing, I don't really have a name for it. I just call it tile editor, also used for just general graphic editing. Use that for all the Throw Rock graphics. And I was going to transition Foresight Fight's graphics over to use it, and then never quite got to that because I was just working on other projects at that time. So those two were sort of me making my own little ecosystem of tools, because I like the idea of being able to come to any computer running any operating system that I've taken the time to support. Just give me a C compiler and a makefile interpreter and, the ability to check out some code from version control or wherever, and I can just sit down at that computer, compile that code, and have all of my tools running fully without having to worry about stuff like third-party tools that I'm using having updated their versions. Maybe they no longer work on some older operating system that I need to run at some point on some computer, or, Linux is my main OS for day-to-day use these days, and Linux support in tools is generally not as good as Windows or Mac. So having my own ecosystem for that means that the tools that I use that are most important to game development will just always work on the platforms that I care about. Their longevity is determined by me and is tied to my own work, therefore matches the work of the games that they go into. So I just liked that idea a whole lot, and I wanted to see where I could get just really committing to this idea of building my own tools that I use for game development and not depending on external stuff. It's a thing that is often advised against in, just the common wisdom is what's the phrase? Don't reinvent the wheel is the way that's often phrased. I like to do the opposite. I get great benefits out of inventing my own wheels or other things. And I just wanted to see sort of where I could get if I really committed to inventing my own things. So to that end, an audio editor and a bitmap image editor are sort of just two of the tools that I would need for this. Text editor I don't think I'm going to worry about right now. Sublime Text does the job for me just fine. I could see a future where I make my own text editor someday, but that's an extremely low priority if it ever happens. However, a 3D modeler is something that I want because I do want to do games with 3D graphics. And I have taken sort of 2.5 months or so, like December through mid-February, March, somewhere around there, to write my own 3D modeling application. So I'm going to switch over to screen view now. and run this little thing. It's not like finished. There is more to do on it, but I have a fairly capable 3D modeling application written from scratch here that is kind of Blender-like. Blender was the modeling application that I knew the best, and I'm just making some random thing here. I have a slight problem here where when I grab that, my cursor goes to the wrong place. That's okay. Well, I'll fix that. So if I press this, it worked fine that time. Anyway, yeah, so it just starts with a little default cube, and I have all sorts of deformation tools that I can use on it. Got this little manipulator thing. You can drag your vertices around. And yeah, just got all sorts of operations that I can apply to this. This one was a huge pain to implement, but I did get it working. Yeah, bevel is... So this was a pretty fascinating learning process, just going through all of the tools that I was familiar with in Blender and re-implementing them on my own was extremely informative. I learned so much from this. So why make my own? Why not just use Blender? Apart from the longevity thing that I talked about before, there are just some fundamental ways of working that are just how Blender is put together that I did not like. One thing I really wanted to be able to do, so yeah, okay, I'll finish that thought first. One thing I wanted to be able to do was to assign arbitrary attributes to each vertex in the model, and by which I mean face-specific vertices, so getting into some specific 3D model stuff. So in Blender, I can't do this. Like having just a cube with each face colored individually. The Blender way to do that, from what I understand, is to assign a texture map and, you know, UV map the cube, draw on those faces what color you want them to be. But I just want to use regular vertex colors. So what I was saying a moment ago is I'm kind of making the graphics programmer's 3D modeling program rather than the artist's 3D modeling program. Because Blender seems to be going in a direction where it's made for someone to create a model in it and then have the ultimate output of that be an image file or an animation or something, rather than a mesh that's further imported into a game or something interactive. So this tool is made very much for making interactive things, but also it's just made for my own hyper-specific needs. Anyway, so in addition to being able to do a color, right, so, sorry, what I was saying was that I can have attributes on each face of this cube, while this is just a single vertex with position just encoded once. I move this around and all of this moves. Each side of it can be selected individually to see different color or different normal or different other attributes. I can edit this list of vertex attributes and add arbitrary stuff. So like if I have a 3D model, I'm going to tag a specific vertex on it to have some property that I would later use in a game that interprets this model. I have the tools for just adding any arbitrary attribute to it and doing that. Or, you know, if I have a fancy shader that needs some more information for how to draw things, I don't have a system for loading a different shader for this just yet. But yeah, that's a thing that this modeling program is capable of doing. Anyway, yeah, so just having my own little 3D modeler that I can make do whatever I want it to do is great. I get to mess around with it and learn lots of things again. So here's a little sample file, the first real object that I put together in this application from scratch. So I started with a cube and a few photos of a tomato that I happened to have around, and just shaped this to look like that tomato and applied some vertex colors to it. You know, this is that color, this is that color, etc. There's no texturing on this. The tomato doesn't really need texturing particularly, but yeah, so this was just an object that I was able to put together without texture mapping and look okay. Yeah, so you can sort of see the subdivided cube topography here. This was a cube corner before. And then I just kind of extruded things out with the to make the stem and leaves there. You know, I do something like that, scale that down, extrude again, move it around a little bit, etc. Okay, Windows is not handling my my mouse events properly. Okay, I made a tomato with a weird protrusion on it. Anyway, yeah, so full-featured 3D modeler made to my specific needs. And yeah, this has been a fun and educational thing to work on. So that's kind of the third tool in the suite of tools that I was making that includes Audiolab and Tile Editor. This one I think I would like to release at some point. I wasn't so sure about Tile Editor. I did want to do Audiolab, but that's a process. Making things that are very specific to my needs, useful for a general audience, is something that takes a lot of effort. And I'm focusing my efforts more on just making things work for my needs at the moment, rather than worry about a public release. But I probably would like to get there with all these things. Anyway, so yeah, I have this cool tool that I want to use for making assets for games that I would like to work on. And, you know, I've been upgrading my tile editor. It probably looks a little bit different from last time I showed it because I haven't showed it in a while, but this modeler has kind of been the focus for a while. Anyway, yeah, and in addition to these things, I've been working on... right, so in December, I left my day job and wanted to focus on my own projects and video games that I've been meaning to make. At that time, I didn't know which specific game project I wanted to work on, and was still kind of doing an exploratory process to figure that out. I've figured it out now. I know what I'm working on. Funny thing about that is it doesn't happen to be anything that involves 3D graphics. Maybe it will at some point, but it's fundamentally a 2D game. But anyway, so this is... The modeler might get some use for that, but this is mostly to do with Tile Editor and just my own framework stuff. Anyway, yeah, so I'm not ready to talk about that game more than that I know what it is and I'm working actively on it, and at some point I'll be able to show it, and I'm very excited about it. It's super cool. So anyway, that's Programming Projects Update. That's what I've been up to and haven't been really talking about all that much. Yeah, so I'll probably do another video on this modeler at some point when I figure out how I want to present this more publicly. I'll go through the features in more detail and present it as, like, in a contrast with Blender, like what I'm making, why somebody might want to use this instead of Blender, for example. And yeah, just walk through what it does. Anyway, maybe make some models in it to show the process, because I think that'd be a lot of fun. Anyway, so beyond that, let's talk about Patreon. So that was a new thing that I set up back in December, and was pretty happy about it. I've been meaning to do that for a while, but like actually leaving my day job was kind of the kick in the booty that I needed to actually get it done. So yeah, that's more or less met my expectations. I didn't expect to get, like, you know, a living wage out of it or anything, but it's a nice little boost of income. It is a source of income, my only source of income at the moment. That's helping me stretch out my living expenses a little bit longer than otherwise I'd be able to. So, you know, I'll have to do other things, but that is one of the things that I'm doing. But, like, mostly what I'm happy about is that it's turned into a nice little active community. There is a private Discord server that you can get access to if you give me a little bit of money per month. And it's a friendly little community, kind of like a secondary comment section for on top of the one that's just already on YouTube. And a cool place to hang out with friends. Yeah, I'm real happy with it. And right, also the polls for the time slot that includes the games that I run that way. Anyway, yeah, so just general life stuff. I'm enjoying my time away from having to work a job for someone else for as much time as that's going to be. I'm very aware that it is a limited amount of time. I will have to do something, whether that something is finding another traditional source of employment or managing to sell games or tools that I'm doing, or, you know, somehow I magically have a big influx of Patreon subscribers and can make things work that way. I don't expect that. That's, you know, that's just a little extra boost in a way for people to give me extra support if they feel like it. But anyway, yeah, so taking care of that on my own. My daily routine has not changed all that much since I left my job. The main thing is that instead of writing code for somebody else, I get to write it for myself. and do things like, put together an entire 3D modeling application that's fairly full-featured and capable in 2.5 months or so. So I'm real proud of being able to do that, having the time to dedicate to that, and it's great. And I still have, in terms of the amount of time I have left, it's variable depending on what my expenses are. Surprises could come up. But I still have more than a year left before I absolutely have to do something. So I'm just kind of going to ride that time that I have, keep working on the things that I'm working on, and see where I can get with them. So that's what's going on in my life. Hope you enjoyed this update, and I'm sure I'll see you again for another one sometime.